My ex from 10 years ago called and said, "I need you to testify that I'm a good mother." I laughed at her. "Get someone else, Rachel. You haven't been a good anything in 10 years. I went to hang up, but she quickly spoke. "It's not what you think. They're trying to take my daughter. Please." I felt bad for maybe 3 seconds. Then I remembered who I was talking to. "Rachel, I'm sorry about your custody case, but no. I'm not lying in court for you." She hung up. An hour later, someone knocked on my door. It was Rachel. And my sister Maya was with her. "We need to talk," Maya said, pushing past me into my apartment. Rachel followed, crying. "Maya, what are you doing here?" "Helping someone who actually needs help," she shot back. They spent the next hour tag-teaming me. Rachel crying about losing her daughter. Maya calling me a heartless monster. Every time I asked why Maya was involved, she changed the subject to me being selfish. Finally, after endless refusals, Rachel looked me dead in the eye. "You're going to testify whether you like it or not." Over the next week, they ambushed me everywhere. I'd be at the gym, and suddenly Maya and Rachel would appear, loudly telling everyone I was happy to let a child go into foster care. Then Rachel escalated. She showed up at my engagement party, with her 7-year-old daughter Ariana, a quiet girl who looked exactly like Rachel, down to the green eyes. My fiancé was giving a toast when Rachel walked Ariana right up to our table. "This is the woman who can save us," she told Ariana, loud enough for everyone to hear. Ariana looked at me with huge eyes. "Are you going to help my mommy?" My fiancé stopped speaking. Everyone stared at Rachel, who had her phone out filming. "Rachel, this isn't fair. What's not fair is letting them take my baby," she said, still filming. The video went viral that night. Woman refuses to save child from foster care at her own engagement party. Maya showed up the next morning with documents. I talked to a lawyer. "You can be subpoenaed as a character witness. The court can compel your testimony." The papers looked official. Court letterhead, case numbers, everything. "Just agree to testify truthfully," Maya said, "or be held in contempt." The next morning, Rachel's entire family showed up. Her mom, dad, even her brother from Florida. They surrounded me in my living room for hours, taking turns guilt-tripping me. The whole time, I kept wondering why Maya cared so much. Why was she so invested in Rachel keeping her kid? Rachel started a social media campaign. Used my full name, my photo, my workplace. She could save my daughter but won't. It got thousands of shares. My boss asked if I needed time off to handle the situation. Rachel texted, "I'll delete everything. Just say you'll testify." I was exhausted. "Fine. I'll come to court. I'll tell the truth about what I know." Her whole face changed. She immediately texted someone. Minutes later, Maya arrived with more documents. "Sign this affidavit about Rachel's parenting. We'll submit it to the court." I read it. It was full of lies about Rachel being an amazing mother, how I'd witnessed her devotion for years. "I can't sign this. It's perjury." "Then at least come to court," Maya begged. "Just be there. Your presence alone might help." I agreed, just to end the harassment. The court date arrived. I sat in the gallery as Rachel's ex-husband testified about her neglect, her drinking, her leaving Ariana alone for hours. Then Rachel's lawyer called me as a witness. I hadn't agreed to this. On the stand, her lawyer asked, "How long have you known Rachel?" 10 years, but we haven't been close. "And in that time, have you ever seen her harm her daughter?" "I've barely seen her with her daughter. Just answer yes or no." "No, but..." No further questions. I was furious. But then Rachel's ex-husband's lawyer stood up. "You said you've barely seen Rachel with her daughter. Why?" "Because I've avoided Rachel for years." "Why?" I looked at Maya and Rachel. They were both shaking their heads. "Because she's manipulative and dishonest." The courtroom got quiet. "Can you elaborate?" I told them everything. The ambushes, the harassment, the viral videos, the fake documents, how she'd forced me to testify. Rachel's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. During recess, Maya cornered me in the bathroom. "How could you? How could you? Why do you care so much about Rachel's custody?" Maya went quiet. "How long have you been together?" I asked. 4 years, she whispered. "Is Ariana?" "We used a donor," Maya said. "But I'm on the birth certificate too. If Rachel loses custody, I lose Ariana." I stared at my sister. "You've been hiding this for 4 years?" "Rachel didn't want anyone to know, especially not you." "Why?" That's when Rachel walked in, pale. "Because Ariana isn't from a donor," she said quietly. Everything stopped. "Your ex-boyfriend, Tom. Remember when you brought him to Christmas 9 years ago? Something happened. Ariana is his." I looked at my sister, who'd known for 4 years. At Rachel, who'd hidden this for 7. "You had a baby with my boyfriend?" "Ex-boyfriend. You'd been broken up for 2 months. And you never told me? Either of you?" "He doesn't know either," Rachel added. "But if the court finds out Ariana's biological father was never notified, I'll definitely lose custody." That's when the bailiff knocked. Court's resuming. I walked back to the stand with information that could destroy everything. The judge asked if I had anything to add to my testimony. I looked at Maddox sitting up there in his black robe, then at Rachel, who had gone totally white, then at Maya, whose eyes were begging me not to say anything. My mouth felt dry and my hands were shaking a little because I knew that whatever came out next would wreck somebody's life. Tom didn't know he had a kid. Ariana didn't know her real dad existed. Rachel would lose everything if the court found out she hid the biological father. And Maya would lose the little girl she'd been raising for 4 years. All of it was sitting on my shoulders right now, and I could feel the weight pressing down on me like something physical. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. Judge Maddox was staring at me, waiting for an answer, and the whole courtroom had gone quiet. Rachel's lawyer looked nervous, like he could tell something bad was coming. The ex-husband's lawyer was leaning forward in her seat, looking eager. I took a breath that felt too big for my lungs. I cleared my throat and said I needed to talk to both lawyers privately before I kept going. Maddox's eyebrows went up and he looked annoyed, but he banged his gavel and called a recess. A bailiff led me and the 2 lawyers down a hallway into this tiny conference room with a table and 4 chairs. The door closed and suddenly it was just me, Gregory Penn, who was Rachel's lawyer, and Natalia Wilcox, who represented the ex-husband. They both stared at me, waiting. Gregory looked worried already, like he knew I was about to drop a bomb on his case. Natalia looked curious and a little excited, like she smelled blood in the water. I told them everything. About Tom being my ex-boyfriend 9 years ago. About Rachel sleeping with him after we broke up. About Ariana being his biological daughter, and him never knowing she existed. About Maya being Rachel's secret partner for 4 years, and how she was on the birth certificate even though she wasn't the biological parent. About how Rachel admitted all of this to me in the bathroom 20 minutes ago because she was scared I'd tell the court. The words came out fast and I watched their faces change as I talked. Natalia's eyes got bright and she sat up straighter because she knew this information could win her whole case right now. Gregory looked like someone had punched him in the stomach and all the color drained out of his face. Gregory asked if I was totally sure about the paternity thing. I told him Rachel said it herself in the bathroom with Maya standing right there. He put his head in his hands for a second, then explained that if Tom was never told about Ariana, the entire custody setup could get thrown out. The court might put Ariana in temporary foster care while they tracked down Tom and did DNA tests and figured out who should actually have custody. It could take months. Ariana could end up with strangers during all that legal mess. His voice got quiet when he said that last part, like he was thinking about what it would do to a 7-year-old kid. Natalia jumped in and said Holden deserved to know the truth. She said Rachel's whole pattern of lying and hiding things proved she wasn't fit to be a parent. She started talking about fraud and deception and how the court needed to know about this material fact. I sat there feeling sick because I had information that could help Rachel's ex get custody, but it would hurt Ariana in the process. Ariana, who didn't do anything wrong. Ariana, who already looked scared and confused sitting in that courtroom. I'd come here planning to tell the truth and wreck Rachel's case, but now I was thinking about a little girl getting taken away from both her parents and put with foster people she didn't know. We went back into the courtroom after about 15 minutes. Everyone was staring at us, trying to figure out what happened in that room. I walked up to the witness stand and asked Judge Maddox if I could make a statement instead of answering more questions. He looked at me for a long second, then said yes. I could see Rachel at her table gripping the edge, so hard her knuckles were bone white. Maya was in the gallery behind her, looking like she might throw up. The ex-husband Holden was watching me with this intense look, like he was trying to read my mind. I told the court I'd been thinking about my earlier testimony. I said I'd been angry when I talked about Rachel's character, and maybe that anger made me say things that weren't totally fair. I said I didn't feel comfortable judging whether Rachel was a good mom or not, because I hadn't actually been around her and Ariana much in recent years. It was technically true, even though I was leaving out the huge part about Tom. I saw relief wash over Rachel's face and she put her hand over her mouth. Gregory looked like he couldn't believe I was helping his case after everything. Natalia was giving me this hard stare like she knew I was hiding something. Court ended for the day around 4:30. I walked out through the big doors into the lobby and Maya was waiting for me. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a corner away from other people. She asked what I told the lawyers in that private room. Her voice was shaking and her eyes were red like she'd been crying. I told her I didn't say anything about Tom being Ariana's dad. She looked so relieved she actually hugged me, which was weird because we hadn't hugged in years. Then I pulled back and said she and Rachel owed me real explanations for hiding their relationship and lying to my face for 4 years. Maya nodded and said they'd tell me everything. But right now she just needed to get Ariana home because the kid was upset from being in court all day. I walked out to the parking lot and saw Jimena's car waiting by the curb. I got in and she looked at me and immediately knew something major had happened beyond just the regular courtroom stuff. She asked if I was okay, and I said not really. On the drive home, I explained everything. About Maya and Rachel being together for 4 years. About Ariana being Tom's biological daughter. About how Tom had no idea he had a kid. About the impossible choice I'd just made in that conference room to protect a child whose mother I couldn't stand. Jimena listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she reached over and squeezed my hand. She said it sounded like I'd made the only choice that put Ariana first, even though it meant letting Rachel off the hook. Jimena asked if I was going to tell Tom. I realized I hadn't thought past today. Tom had a right to know he had a daughter. But telling him would start this whole custody nightmare that could hurt Ariana way more than help her. He lived in another state now. He had his own life and probably his own family. What would it do to Ariana to have this stranger show up claiming to be her real dad? What would it do to Tom to find out he'd missed 7 years of his daughter's life? I didn't have answers to any of that. I just sat there watching the city go by outside the car window, thinking about how one secret could wreck so many lives at once. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd learned. Back in my apartment that night, I opened my laptop and started searching for information about custody cases and paternity. The screen glowed in the dark room while Jimena slept in the bedroom. I typed in different combinations of words like biological father custody rights and unknown paternity legal cases. The results made my stomach hurt. Page after page showed families torn apart by paternity revelations. Kids shuttled between multiple homes while lawyers fought for years. One case took 5 years to resolve, and the child ended up in therapy for anxiety. Another showed a father who'd missed 8 years of his daughter's life suing everyone involved for hiding the truth. The legal stuff was complicated, but the pattern was clear. Telling Tom about Ariana would start a nightmare that could hurt her way more than help her. Courts had to notify biological fathers. That meant investigations and DNA tests and temporary custody arrangements while everything got sorted out. Ariana could end up in foster care during the whole mess. I found a case from 3 years ago where a 7-year-old girl got placed with strangers for 6 months while 3 adults fought over custody. The girl's therapist testified that the trauma caused problems that would last for years. I closed the laptop around 2 in the morning. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ariana's face at the engagement party asking if I would help her mommy. I kept thinking about Tom, too. He had a right to know he had a daughter. But what about Ariana's right to not have her whole life destroyed by adult mistakes? Someone knocked on my door at 7:15 the next morning. I'd barely slept and stumbled to answer it in my pajamas. Maya stood there holding 2 coffee cups and looking like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were red and puffy. She held out one of the cups without saying anything. I took it and stepped back to let her inside. We sat on my couch in silence for a minute. She kept opening her mouth like she wanted to talk, then closing it again. Finally, she set down her coffee and turned to face me. She said she was sorry. Not the fake sorry from before, but actual sorry. Her voice cracked when she said she'd been scared to tell me about Rachel for 4 years. She knew I would hate it and probably hate her too. The relationship started at some work event where they both ended up drunk and talking. Rachel was funny and sweet that night, different from the Rachel I knew. Things moved fast, and before Maya knew it, they were together, and Rachel was talking about keeping their relationship secret. Maya said she should have told me right away, but Rachel convinced her it would cause problems. Then weeks turned into months, and months turned into years, and the secret got too big to tell. She started crying while she talked. Real tears, not the manipulative kind Rachel used. She said she missed me. Missed having a sister who actually talked to her. Missed family dinners where we didn't have to pretend or hide things. She said the worst part was watching me plan my engagement party, and knowing Rachel was going to ruin it, but feeling trapped because Ariana needed help. I asked when she found out Tom was Ariana's real father. Maya's face went pale. She said Rachel told her about 2 years into their relationship. They were fighting about something else, and Rachel just blurted it out. She said she'd slept with my ex-boyfriend right after we broke up and got pregnant. Maya was shocked, but Rachel started crying and saying if anyone found out the truth, Ariana would get taken away during a paternity investigation. Rachel made it sound like telling anyone would guarantee Ariana ended up in foster care. So Maya kept quiet. She said she felt sick keeping that secret from me, but she loved Ariana by then. Ariana called her Aunt Maya and ran to her when she got home from the school. Maya couldn't imagine losing that. She said she tried to convince Rachel to tell Tom the truth, but Rachel always had excuses. He was too far away, or too angry, or too whatever. The real reason was Rachel wanted total control. We talked for 3 hours straight. Maya explained how the relationship started with Rachel being charming and attentive. Then slowly, Rachel got more controlling, checking Maya's phone and getting upset if she made plans without asking first, telling Maya what to wear and who to hang out with. Maya said she started to see the same manipulative patterns Rachel used on everyone else, but leaving felt impossible because of Ariana. I started understanding that Maya was another person Rachel had trapped. My sister made bad choices by hiding everything from me, but Rachel had manipulated her into thinking those were the only choices. Maya said Rachel got worse during the custody battle with Holden. Every day brought new panic about losing Ariana. Rachel would wake up in the middle of the night crying about foster care. She'd make Maya promise over and over not to tell anyone about their relationship because she was convinced it would hurt the custody case. The harassment campaign against me was Rachel's idea, and Maya went along with it because Rachel said it was the only way to save Ariana. Maya looked exhausted telling me all this. She said she'd been thinking about leaving Rachel for months, but felt stuck. She loved Ariana and couldn't stand the idea of this little girl losing another person from her life. The custody battle made everything more intense and brought out the worst in Rachel. All the manipulation and desperation and control came out in ways that scared Maya. I told Maya I needed time to process everything, but I didn't want to lose my sister forever over Rachel's lies. That got her crying again. We sat there on my couch both exhausted and sad. I said we should try therapy together, work through the betrayal and the lies and figure out how to rebuild some kind of trust. It wouldn't be easy and things might never be the same as before, But Maya was still my sister. She agreed immediately and hugged me tight. It felt weird hugging her after everything, but also kind of right. Like maybe we could find our way back to each other eventually. 2 days later, my phone rang with Rachel's number. I stared at it for a long time before answering. She asked if we could meet in person to talk. Just the two of us without lawyers or courts or anyone else. I told Jimena about the call and she said it was a terrible idea. Rachel would just manipulate me more. But I was curious what Rachel wanted to say now that everything was out in the open. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown with one condition. I would record our whole conversation on my phone. Rachel said okay. The coffee shop was busy when I got there the next afternoon. Rachel sat at a corner table looking smaller than usual. She'd pulled her hair back in a ponytail and wasn't wearing makeup. She looked tired and sad and almost human for once. I sat down across from her and put my phone on the table between us with the record button clearly visible. Rachel stared at the phone, then nodded. She said she wanted to apologize for the engagement party. It was desperate and wrong, and she knew it hurt me and Jimena. She'd been so scared of losing Ariana that she stopped thinking clearly. She made terrible choices and dragged me into her mess when I'd done nothing wrong. I waited for the twist or the manipulation, but she just sat there looking miserable. She said Holden had way more money than her and kept dragging out the custody battle with expensive lawyers and motions. Every court date cost her thousands of dollars she didn't have. She was terrified that having more money would win him custody, even though she loved Ariana and took care of her. She said she knew she wasn't perfect, but she was trying. I asked why she never told Tom about Ariana. Rachel's whole face changed. She looked down at her coffee and said she was scared of Tom back then, that what happened between them wasn't totally her choice. Her voice got quiet, and she said he'd been drinking, and so had she, but she didn't really want to. This completely changed everything I thought I knew. If Tom had done something to Rachel without her real consent, then keeping Ariana from him made sense. I told Rachel if that was true, she needed to report it and get documentation. Get a therapist or a lawyer to put it on record. She couldn't just say something like that and not back it up. Rachel started backtracking immediately. She said it was more complicated than that. They'd both been really drunk at some party. She'd been upset about me and Tom breaking up and wanted to feel better. She might have started things, but she didn't remember clearly. Tom didn't force her exactly, but she felt weird about it after. She never told him about Ariana because she was ashamed and didn't want him in her life. Her story kept changing with every sentence. First it wasn't consensual, then it was complicated, then it was about shame. I realized I couldn't trust a single word coming out of her mouth. Rachel had spent so many years lying and manipulating that she probably didn't even know what the truth was anymore. I left the coffee shop without saying goodbye. Rachel probably didn't even know what the truth was anymore. I texted Rachel the next day and told her I wouldn't say anything about Tom in court. She called me immediately, but I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted back asking if we could meet one more time, and I almost said no. But I needed to make some things clear, so I agreed to meet at a park near my apartment. Rachel showed up looking nervous and tried to hug me when she arrived. I stepped back before she could touch me. She looked hurt, but I didn't care. I told her protecting Ariana didn't mean protecting her from what she'd done. She needed to understand that all her lying and manipulation was exactly why she was in this mess. Rachel started crying and said she knew she'd made mistakes. I cut her off and said they weren't mistakes. They were choices. She chose to sleep with Tom and hide it. She chose to keep Ariana from her father for 7 years. She chose to drag me into court and harass me at my engagement party. Every single thing that happened was because she kept choosing herself over everyone else. Rachel wiped her eyes and asked if I'd ever forgive her. I told her I didn't know, and I didn't care right now. The only thing that mattered was Ariana not getting hurt worse than she already had been. Rachel nodded and said she understood. Then she asked about Maya and whether I was going to forgive my sister. I said that was between me and Maya and none of her business. Rachel looked like she wanted to argue but didn't. We sat there in silence for a few minutes before I got up and left. The next custody hearing happened a week later. I didn't get called to testify this time, which was a relief. I sat in the back and watched Judge Maddox review some papers while both lawyers shuffled documents. Rachel sat at her table looking pale and scared. Her ex-husband Holden sat at the other table looking calm and confident. The judge cleared his throat and announced he was appointing someone called a guardian ad litem to investigate what was best for Ariana. The woman's name was Anastasia Medina, and she would be interviewing everyone involved in the case. Rachel's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Maddox shut him down fast. The judge said this case had too many questions and contradictions, and he needed an independent evaluation before making any custody decisions. The hearing ended after about 20 minutes and everyone filed out. Maya caught my eye from across the courtroom, but I looked away. Anastasia called me 3 days later. She had a professional voice and explained she was investigating Ariana's situation as part of the custody case. She wanted to meet with me privately since I'd testified already. I agreed even though I felt sick about it. We met at her office, which was in a building downtown. Anastasia was maybe 40 with sharp eyes and a way of looking at you that made you feel like she could see right through any lies. She asked me about how I knew Rachel and I explained our history. Then she asked about the engagement party and the harassment campaign. I described everything Rachel had done to force me to testify. Anastasia took notes the whole time and asked specific questions about dates and details. Then she asked about Maya's relationship with Rachel. I hesitated and said they were together. Anastasia nodded like she already knew and asked how long. I said 4 years as far as I knew. She asked if Maya had legal parental rights to Ariana, and I said I didn't think so. Anastasia made more notes, and I could feel her building some kind of picture in her head. Then Anastasia looked up from her notepad and asked directly if there was any information about Ariana's parentage that the court should know. My stomach dropped and I felt my face get hot. I told her that was something Rachel needed to address, not me. Anastasia watched me for a long moment and then wrote something down. She said she appreciated my time and would be in touch if she had more questions. I left her office feeling like I'd just failed some kind of test. The way she looked at me made it clear she knew I was hiding something. I got in my car and sat there for 10 minutes trying to calm down before driving home. Maya called me that night crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said Anastasia had interviewed her that afternoon and asked all kinds of questions about her relationship with Rachel. Anastasia wanted to know when they got together and whether Maya had any legal connection to Ariana. Then she started asking about family secrets and whether there was anything about Ariana's background that the court didn't know. Maya said she didn't tell Anastasia about Tom, but she could tell Anastasia suspected something. Maya was terrified she'd lose Ariana if Rachel lost custody since she had no legal rights at all. I tried to calm her down, but I didn't know what to say. Maya kept asking if I'd told Anastasia anything, and I said no. Then she asked what I thought was going to happen, and I said I had no idea. We stayed on the phone for almost an hour while Maya cried and panicked. Eventually, she said she had to go and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Tom for the first time in years. We dated for about 8 months when I was 24, and it ended badly. He'd wanted to get serious, and I wasn't ready, so I broke it off. I wondered what kind of person he was now and whether he'd even want to know about Ariana. I grabbed my laptop and found his social media after searching for a few minutes. His profile was public, and I scrolled through photos of him with a wife and 2 little kids. They lived somewhere in Ohio based on the location tags. His life looked stable and happy. There were pictures of birthday parties and family vacations and normal everyday stuff. I stared at a photo of Tom holding his daughter who looked maybe 4 years old. He had no idea he had another daughter 3 states away who looked just like him. I closed my laptop feeling worse than before. Jimena noticed I was distracted the next few days. She finally asked what was wrong while we were making dinner. I told her I'd been thinking about Tom and whether he deserved to know about Ariana. Jimena stopped chopping vegetables and looked at me. She said of course he deserved to know. I said it wasn't that simple because telling him could make everything worse for Ariana. Jimena put down the knife and said Tom had a fundamental right to know he had a child. I argued that Ariana's safety mattered more than Tom's rights. Jimena said they both mattered and I couldn't just decide to keep a man from knowing about his own daughter. We went back and forth, getting louder and more frustrated. Jimena said I was making excuses because I didn't want to deal with the fallout. I said she didn't understand how complicated the custody situation was. She said that was exactly the point. It was complicated because Rachel had lied for 7 years, and I was helping her keep lying. I told her I wasn't helping Rachel. I was protecting Ariana. Jimena shook her head and said protecting Ariana meant giving her a chance to know her real father. We barely spoke the rest of the night. I couldn't stop thinking about what Jimena said. 2 days later, I looked up family law attorneys and made an appointment for a consultation. The lawyer's name was something I can't remember now, and her office was small but professional. I explained the whole situation without using names. I asked if I had any legal duty to tell Tom about Ariana. The attorney said no. I had no legal obligation to reveal paternity information that I'd learned privately. But then she said if Tom ever found out later that people knew and didn't tell him, he could potentially sue for custody and might have grounds to argue his parental rights were violated. She explained it would be a complicated case, but Tom would definitely have legal standing once paternity was established. I asked what would happen if Tom pursued custody now. The attorney said it would reopen the whole custody case and get very messy very fast. The attorney pulled out a legal pad and started drawing a diagram. She explained that if Tom came forward claiming paternity, the court would order DNA testing first. During that process, which could take weeks, Ariana's custody situation would be in limbo. Then if the test confirmed Tom was the father, the court would have to sort out custody between 3 potential parents instead of 2. Rachel and Holden's existing custody arrangement would be thrown out. The attorney said in cases like this, kids sometimes end up in temporary foster care while everything gets sorted out because the court can't leave them with parents whose custody is being challenged. She looked at me seriously and said this exact scenario was probably what Rachel had been trying to avoid. I felt sick. Everything I'd been trying to prevent by keeping quiet could still happen if Tom found out later. There was no way to protect Ariana from this completely. I left the attorney's office feeling more confused than when I went in. Maya called me that night asking if we could talk, and I agreed to meet her for coffee the next morning. She showed up looking tired, with dark circles under her eyes that told me she hadn't been sleeping either. We sat across from each other at a small table near the window, and for the first few minutes neither of us said anything. Finally, Maya took a breath and told me she'd found a therapist who specialized in family conflict and asked if I'd go with her. I almost said no automatically, but something in her face stopped me. She looked desperate and sad in a way I'd never seen before, and I realized she was actually trying to fix things instead of just defending Rachel. I told her yes, and we scheduled the first session for Thursday afternoon. The therapist's office was in a converted house with soft lighting and comfortable chairs that were supposed to make you feel relaxed. The therapist herself was younger than I expected, maybe in her early 40s, with short dark hair and glasses. She introduced herself and asked us to explain why we were there. Maya started talking first, her voice shaky as she described our relationship before all this happened. She talked about how close we used to be, how we told each other everything, how I was the first person she came out to when she was 19. Then she got to Rachel and her voice changed, became defensive and smaller at the same time. She explained about keeping the relationship secret, about being scared of my reaction, about getting deeper into it before she could figure out how to tell me. The therapist listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow pad. When Maya finished, the therapist turned to me and asked what I wanted to say. I told her about the 4 years of lies, about watching Maya at family dinners and holidays knowing she was hiding something this huge from me. I told her about the engagement party ambush and the courthouse bathroom revelation, and finding out Ariana was Tom's daughter. The therapist asked Maya why she thought she needed to hide the relationship, and Maya's answer surprised me. She said Rachel had convinced her I would try to break them up, that I was judgmental and controlling and wouldn't accept their relationship. Maya looked at me with tears in her eyes and said she knew now that Rachel had been manipulating her, making her afraid of something that probably wouldn't have happened. The therapist asked if that was true, if I would have tried to break them up. I thought about it honestly and told Maya I would have been upset at first because of my history with Rachel, but I wouldn't have tried to control her life. I would have told her my concerns and then let her make her own choices. Maya started crying for real then, and she told me she felt trapped by her love for Ariana. She said once she got attached to Ariana as a baby, she couldn't imagine leaving even when the relationship with Rachel got bad. The therapist asked what she meant by bad, and Maya described Rachel's controlling behavior, her jealousy, her pattern of lying and manipulation that extended to their relationship too. She said Rachel would threaten to keep Ariana away from her whenever they fought, would use Ariana as leverage to keep Maya in line. The therapist made more notes and asked me how I felt hearing this. I told her I was angry that Maya chose Rachel over me for 4 years, that she came to Christmas dinners and birthday parties and my engagement party lying to my face the whole time. I said it wasn't just about the relationship being secret. It was about Maya picking Rachel's comfort over our relationship again and again. The therapist nodded and asked Maya if she understood why that hurt me so much. Maya said yes, that she could see now how her choices had damaged our trust, and that she didn't know how to fix it. The session ended with the therapist giving us some homework about writing down our feelings and expectations, and we scheduled another appointment for the following week. 3 days after the therapy session, Maya called me sounding stressed. She said Rachel's custody evaluation wasn't going well, and that Holden's lawyer had submitted a huge packet of evidence. I asked what kind of evidence, and Maya described documents showing Rachel's bank account overdrafts, late rent payments, and credit card debt. There were also witness statements from neighbors who'd heard Rachel and Maya fighting loudly late at night, and from Ariana's school teacher who said Ariana sometimes came to the school in dirty clothes or without lunch. Maya sounded defensive as she explained these things, making excuses for each one. The money problems were because Rachel had to pay for a lawyer. The fighting was just normal relationship stress. Ariana's clothes were fine. The teacher was exaggerating. But I could hear the worry in her voice underneath the excuses. She told me Holden had also documented times when Rachel left Ariana alone while she went out, including one incident where a neighbor called the police because 7-year-old Ariana was crying on the front steps at 9 at night. Rachel had told the police she'd only been gone 20 minutes to get medicine from the pharmacy, but the neighbor said it had been over an hour. Maya tried to defend this too, saying Rachel had a migraine and needed medicine urgently, but even she sounded uncertain. I asked Maya if she thought Ariana was safe with Rachel. Really safe. And there was a long silence. Finally, Maya said she thought Ariana was loved, but that Rachel's judgment wasn't always great, especially when she was stressed. I told Maya that love wasn't enough if a kid wasn't being properly taken care of, and Maya got quiet again. The next day, Maya called again, this time about Anastasia interviewing Ariana. The guardian had spent an hour with Ariana at the courthouse in a child-friendly room with toys and books. Maya wasn't allowed to be there, but Rachel told her what happened afterward. Anastasia had asked Ariana about her daily routine, about both households, about how she felt about her mom and dad. According to Rachel, Ariana said she loved both parents and wanted to live with both of them. But then Anastasia asked if Ariana ever felt scared at home, and Ariana had said yes sometimes. When Anastasia asked why, Ariana said she got scared when her mom and Aunt Maya fought because they yelled and sometimes broke things. Rachel tried to downplay this, telling Maya that kids exaggerate and that they'd only had a few bad fights. But Maya admitted to me that the fighting had gotten worse over the past 6 months, that the custody stress was making everything harder. I asked if Ariana had witnessed the fights, and Maya said yes, that Ariana had seen them argue and had even tried to stop them a few times by crying or asking them to stop. My stomach turned thinking about that little girl trying to make the adults in her life stop hurting each other. Maya said Anastasia also asked Ariana about her dad's house, and Ariana said it was quieter there, and she had her own room with a nightlight. She said her dad helped her with homework and made her breakfast every morning. I could hear Maya processing what this meant, that Ariana might actually be better off with Holden even though Maya would lose access to her. 3 weeks after the bathroom revelation, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Gregory, Rachel's lawyer. He asked if I had a few minutes to talk, and I told him I wasn't interested in being manipulated again. He said he understood my hesitation, but that he wanted to be straight with me about where things stood. I agreed to listen, mostly out of curiosity. Gregory explained that the custody case was not going Rachel's way. Holden's evidence was strong, and Anastasia's preliminary report suggested Ariana needed more stability and structure than Rachel was currently providing. He said the court was leaning toward giving Holden primary custody, with Rachel getting supervised visitation, until she could demonstrate better judgment and financial stability. I asked why he was telling me this, and he said because Rachel needed character witnesses who could speak to her positive qualities and her support system. He wanted to know if I'd be willing to testify again, this time about how I'd chosen to protect Ariana despite my conflict with Rachel. I almost laughed at the audacity of asking me to help Rachel after everything she'd done. But Gregory kept talking, saying that my testimony could show the court that Rachel had people in her life who would hold her accountable and help her make better choices. He said it might not change the outcome completely, but it could affect whether Rachel got supervised or unsupervised visitation and how much time she'd get with Ariana. I told Gregory I needed to think about it, and he said he understood. He gave me his direct number and said to call him within the next few days if I decided to help. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to let Rachel face the full consequences of her choices without any help from me. She'd manipulated me, harassed me, used her daughter as a weapon, and hidden a massive secret about Tom. But another part of me kept thinking about Ariana, about that little girl who didn't ask for any of this. If I testified and it helped Rachel keep some meaningful time with Ariana, would that be better for Ariana in the long run? Or would it just enable Rachel to keep making bad choices? I called Jimena and explained the situation. She listened quietly and then asked what I thought was actually best for Ariana, separate from my feelings about Rachel. I said honestly, I didn't know. Ariana needed stability and good judgment, which Holden seemed to provide. But she also loved her mom, and completely cutting off that relationship might hurt her too. Jimena pointed out that I wasn't responsible for fixing this situation, that Rachel had created this mess herself. But she also said if I genuinely thought my testimony could help Ariana, then maybe that was worth considering. I thought about it for 2 days before calling Gregory back. I told him I'd testify, but only about the specific choice I'd made to protect Ariana's welfare by not revealing Tom's paternity in court. I wouldn't lie about Rachel's character or pretend we had a good relationship. I wouldn't claim she was a great mother, or that I'd witnessed years of devoted parenting. I would only speak truthfully about the one decision I'd made to prioritize a child's immediate safety over exposing someone's lies. Gregory asked if I could at least speak to Rachel having people who cared about Ariana's welfare in her life, and I said I could say that Maya genuinely loved Ariana, and that I'd seen that love was real. That was true, and it might help show Rachel had some support system. Gregory thanked me and said he'd be in touch about when I'd need to testify. After I hung up, I felt strange about the decision. I still didn't like Rachel, and I didn't trust her. But I kept thinking about Ariana's face at the engagement party, those scared eyes looking at me while adults fought around her. If my testimony could help that kid have a relationship with her mom while also having the stability of her dad's house, maybe that was the right thing to do. Jimena and I went to our couples counseling session that week, and our therapist helped us work through the argument we'd had about Tom. Jimena explained that she felt like I was protecting Rachel by keeping the secret, and that it bothered her to see me compromise my values. I explained that I wasn't protecting Rachel. I was trying to protect Ariana from an even worse situation where she might end up in foster care while 3 adults fought over custody. Our therapist asked Jimena if she could understand my position even if she disagreed with it, and Jimena said yes, that she could see I was trying to do what I thought was best for the child. Then the therapist asked me if I could understand why Jimena felt uncomfortable with the secret keeping, and I said yes, that I knew it looked like I was helping Rachel get away with lying. We talked about how sometimes there aren't perfect answers, how choosing the lesser harm is still a valid choice even when it feels wrong. Jimena reached over and took my hand, and she said she was sorry for calling my judgment into question. She said she trusted me to make the right choices even when they were complicated. I told her I was sorry for getting defensive, and that I understood her concerns about Tom's rights. We agreed that this situation was messy, and that we'd probably never feel completely good about any choice we made. But we also agreed that Ariana's immediate welfare had to come first, and that we'd figure out the Tom situation after the custody case was resolved. The following Saturday, I went to the park near my apartment to clear my head. I was sitting on a bench watching people walk their dogs, when I heard a familiar voice calling my name. I turned and saw Maya walking toward me with Ariana holding her hand. Ariana recognized me immediately, and her face lit up with a shy smile. She asked if I was still mad at her mommy, and I felt my chest tighten at the question. I knelt down so I was at her eye level and told her that grown-up problems weren't her fault, and she shouldn't worry about them. Ariana nodded seriously, and then asked if I wanted to see her do the monkey bars. I said yes, and she ran off toward the playground equipment with Maya following behind her. Maya and I sat on a bench watching Ariana play, and Maya thanked me for being kind to her. I told Maya that Ariana didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of adult drama, and Maya agreed. We watched Ariana swing across the monkey bars, her face focused and determined. As I watched Ariana play, I started noticing things I hadn't seen before. The way she tilted her head to the side when she was thinking about which direction to go. The quick smile that spread across her face when she succeeded at something. The energetic way she moved, always bouncing or running or climbing. Every single one of those mannerisms reminded me of Tom. I remembered how he used to tilt his head exactly that way when he was working through a problem, how his smile would light up his whole face in that same sudden way, how he was always moving, always restless, always needing physical activity. Ariana had his features too, not just Rachel's. The shape of her nose, the way her eyebrows curved, the strong jawline that would probably become more obvious as she got older. I felt the weight of the secret press down on me harder than ever before. This child had a biological father who didn't know she existed, who'd missed 7 years of her life, who might want to know her if he had the chance. But telling him would blow up everything and might hurt Ariana more than help her. I watched Ariana laugh as she slid down the slide, and I wondered if I was making the right choice by keeping quiet. The secret felt heavier every time I saw her, every time I noticed another piece of Tom in her face and movements. I walked to my apartment and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. The question about Tom wouldn't leave me alone. I kept thinking about Ariana's face, about how she had his smile and his way of moving. Jimena came home from work and found me staring at a blank screen. She asked what I was doing, and I told her I didn't know what to do about Tom. She sat down next to me and suggested I write him a letter explaining everything, then decide whether to send it. She said sometimes just writing things out helps you figure out what you really think. I started typing. The words came slowly at first, then faster. I wrote about the custody case, about Rachel's lies, about Ariana. I wrote about the park and seeing Tom and Ariana's expressions. I wrote about how he had a daughter he didn't know about, and how she had a father who could have been part of her life. The letter got longer and longer until it was 3 pages of everything I'd been holding inside. When I finished, I read it back and felt something shift in my chest. Writing it all down made me realize I was scared of the chaos this would cause. Rachel would lose custody if the court found out she'd hidden Ariana's biological father. Maya would lose Ariana too, since she had no legal rights. Ariana might end up in foster care during the legal mess. But keeping the secret meant I was helping Rachel lie, and that made me part of the deception. There were no good choices here, only ones that would hurt fewer people. 3 days later, I called the family law attorney I'd consulted before and made another appointment. The attorney's office was in a tall building downtown with windows that looked out over the city. I sat across from her desk and asked what would happen if I told Tom about Ariana now, after custody had already been decided. The attorney leaned back in her chair and explained that it could reopen the entire case. Tom would have legal standing to request paternity testing and custody rights. The court might be angry about the late revelation and could view it negatively, especially since Rachel had deliberately hidden this information. Ariana could end up in temporary foster care while everything got sorted out between 3 potential parents instead of 2. The attorney asked if I was sure Tom was the biological father, and I said Rachel had admitted it directly. The attorney made notes on her legal pad and told me this was a complicated situation with no easy answers. She said Tom had rights as a biological parent, but that revealing it now would create massive disruption for Ariana. I left her office feeling even more confused than before. The following Tuesday, Maya and I had our regular therapy session. We'd been going for a few weeks now, trying to rebuild trust after everything that happened. Our therapist was a woman in her 50s who never let us avoid difficult topics. Maya and I sat on opposite ends of the couch in the small office while the therapist asked how things were going. I brought up the Tom situation, and Maya's face went pale. She knew I was still struggling with whether to tell him. Maya admitted she thought Tom should know about Ariana, but she understood why I was hesitant. She said she'd been thinking about it too and felt guilty for keeping the secret all these years. The therapist asked what I was afraid would happen if I told Tom. I listed everything. Rachel losing custody, Maya losing Ariana in foster care, legal chaos. The therapist nodded and said something that stuck with me. She said I wasn't responsible for fixing Rachel's lies. I was only responsible for making choices I could live with. She asked what I could live with, and I didn't have an answer right away. Maya reached over and squeezed my hand. She said whatever I decided, she would support me. That was the first time in months I felt like my sister was actually on my side, instead of Rachel's. I spent the next week thinking about what the therapist said. I looked at Tom's social media again and saw photos of him with his wife and their 2 kids. He looked happy and stable. He had a life that was working. Telling him about Ariana would blow that up too. But he also had a daughter who existed and deserved to know her father. I kept coming back to Ariana. She was 7 years old and had already been through so much with the custody battle. She deserved to know where she came from. She deserved to have her real father in her life if he wanted to be there. I decided I had to tell Tom, but I needed to do it carefully and with support. I opened Facebook and found Tom's profile. I sent him a message that said I needed to discuss something important from our past and asked if he'd be willing to talk. I kept it vague because I couldn't explain everything in a message. I hit send and then sat staring at my phone. He responded 3 hours later saying he was willing to talk and asking what this was about. I told him it was complicated and asked if we could do a video call. He agreed, and we set up a time for that weekend. Saturday afternoon, I sat in my living room with my laptop on the coffee table. Jimena sat next to me for support. The video call started and Tom's face appeared on the screen. He looked older, but still familiar. He had the same eyes and smile I remembered from 9 years ago. He asked what this was about, and I took a deep breath. I told him as gently as I could that something happened after we broke up that he didn't know about. I explained about Rachel and the Christmas party, and how Ariana was born 8 months later. I watched his face change as he processed what I was saying. He asked if I was telling him he had a daughter, and I said yes. He went completely silent for a long moment. Then he asked why Rachel never told him. I explained about the custody battle and how Rachel had been hiding this to avoid losing Ariana. Tom's face went through shock, then anger, then confusion. He asked how old Ariana was, and I told him 7. He did the math in his head and realized he'd missed 7 years of his daughter's life. He asked if he could meet her, and I gave him Anastasia's contact information since she was still monitoring the custody situation as the guardian ad litem. Tom thanked me for telling him even though I could see he was struggling to process everything. After we hung up, I sat there feeling like I'd just set off a bomb. Tom moved fast. Within a week, he'd contacted a lawyer and filed for paternity testing and custody rights. I got a call from Maya saying the court had reopened Ariana's case. Maya was crying and asking why I did this. Rachel called me screaming that I'd destroyed everything. Ariana's teacher called Maya saying Ariana was confused about why there was another court case and why people kept talking about her dad. The whole situation exploded into chaos exactly like I'd feared. Rachel showed up at my apartment and pounded on the door until I let her in. She stood in my living room yelling that I'd ruined her life and Ariana's life. She said Ariana would end up in foster care now because of me. I told Rachel this was her fault for lying for 7 years, not mine for telling the truth. She left crying and I felt sick about the whole thing. Maya sent me a text saying she was scared of losing Ariana and didn't know what to do. I called her and we talked for an hour. I told her I was sorry for the chaos, but that Tom deserved to know. Maya said she understood, but that didn't make it easier. Jimena held me that night while I cried about all the pain this was causing, even though I still thought it was the right thing to do. 2 weeks later, we were all back in court. Judge Bailey Maddox looked annoyed when he called the case. He asked why paternity information was only coming out now, months after the initial custody decision. Rachel's lawyer tried to explain, but Maddox cut him off. The judge ordered DNA testing for Tom and Ariana to confirm paternity. He said he wasn't happy about people hiding information from the court, and that there would be consequences for deliberate deception. Rachel sat at her table looking like she might throw up. Tom sat on the other side of the courtroom with his lawyer, looking determined. Maya sat in the gallery watching everything fall apart. The DNA testing happened the following week at a court-approved facility. Tom and Ariana both gave samples, and then we waited for results. It took 10 days for the lab to process everything. When the results came back, they confirmed what everyone already knew. Tom was Ariana's biological father with a match rate over 99%. The court scheduled another hearing to address custody, now that there were 3 parents involved instead of 2. Judge Maddox ordered mediation between Rachel, Holden, and Tom to try to work out an arrangement before going back to court. The mediation happened at a neutral office building with a professional mediator. Rachel, Holden, and Tom sat around a conference table while their lawyers sat behind them. Ariana's therapist, Darren Faulkner, was brought in to help navigate how this would affect Ariana and how to handle the expanded family situation. The mediator explained that they needed to work out a custody arrangement that included all 3 parents and put Ariana's needs first. Rachel looked miserable. Holden looked cautious. Tom looked nervous but determined. They spent hours talking about schedules and transitions and how to explain this to Ariana. Darren talked about how children adjust to complex family situations and what Ariana would need for support. The mediator suggested they start with supervised visits between Tom and Ariana so she could get to know him gradually. Everyone agreed that was the best approach. They scheduled the first meeting for the following Saturday at a neutral location with Darren present to help facilitate. The meeting happened at a family center that had a play area and comfortable rooms for visits. Tom arrived early with his wife and their 2 kids. Ariana came with Maya and Rachel. Ariana looked shy and uncertain when she walked in. Tom knelt down to her level and introduced himself gently. He told her he was her biological father and that he'd just found out about her. Ariana stared at him with those green eyes that looked so much like Rachel's, but had his smile underneath. She asked if he was mad at her, and Tom said no. He could never be mad at her. His wife introduced herself, and their kids came over. Ariana's whole face changed when she realized she had half-siblings. She asked their names and ages and if they wanted to play. The kids went off to the play area together while the adults watched. Tom's eyes filled up watching Ariana interact with his other children. She was laughing and climbing on the play structure and being a normal 7-year-old kid. Darren took notes and asked Ariana how she was feeling. Ariana said she was happy to have more family. The visit went better than anyone expected, and they scheduled another one for the following week. Over the next few weeks, the 3 of them worked out a schedule that looked impossible on paper, but somehow functioned in reality. Ariana spent Monday and Tuesday with Rachel, Wednesday and Thursday with Holden, and Friday through Sunday alternating between Tom's house and back to Rachel. The mediator created a color-coded calendar that everyone kept on their phones. Rachel had to text the group chat whenever Ariana arrived or left. Holden did the same. Tom sent photos of Ariana with her half-siblings almost daily. The first month was chaos with missed pickups and confused schedules. Ariana forgot her backpack at Rachel's when she was supposed to be at Holden's. Tom showed up on the wrong day twice. But gradually, everyone fell into a rhythm. Darren met with Ariana every week and reported back to the court that she was handling the transitions better than expected. She liked having 3 different bedrooms and got excited about which house she was going to next. The structure seemed to help her feel secure instead of torn apart. Maya called me on a Tuesday afternoon and asked if we could meet for coffee. She looked different when I arrived, lighter somehow. We sat outside even though it was cold. She told me she'd ended things with Rachel permanently the week before. Not because of the custody situation or the lies, but because she finally realized she'd been in love with being Ariana's parent, more than being Rachel's partner. The relationship had been unhealthy from the start, but Maya had stayed because leaving meant losing Ariana. Now that she had a defined role in Ariana's life as a family friend who Ariana could visit, Maya felt free to walk away from Rachel. She was staying in Ariana's life, but on her own terms. Rachel had tried to manipulate her into staying, but Maya held firm for the first time in 4 years. She looked proud of herself when she told me. 2 weeks after that conversation, Tom and his wife invited me to their hotel. They were in town for Ariana's school play and wanted to talk. His wife made a point of thanking me for telling Tom about Ariana, even though it came so late. She said their family felt more complete now. Tom was harder to read. He admitted he was angry about missing Ariana's first 7 years. Her first words, first steps, first day of school. All of it gone because Rachel decided he didn't deserve to know. But he was also grateful to have any time with her going forward. He showed me videos of Ariana playing with his other kids. She fit right into their family like she'd always been there. His wife said Ariana called them on video chat every night she wasn't at their house. Tom asked if I thought Rachel would ever apologize to him, and I told him honestly that I didn't know. Rachel was working on herself, but some things might be too big to apologize for. I ran into Rachel at the grocery store a month later. We both froze in the produce section. She looked tired but less frantic than before. We stood there awkwardly until she asked if we could talk. We ended up sitting in her car in the parking lot. She told me she'd been seeing a therapist twice a week working on her manipulative patterns. The therapist was helping her understand why she always tried to control everything and everyone around her. Rachel said she was learning to take responsibility for her choices instead of blaming circumstances. She admitted that her desperation during the custody battle had hurt everyone, especially Ariana. The viral videos, the ambushes, the fake documents, all of it had been wrong. She said she understood now that Ariana would have been better off if Rachel had just been honest from the start. About Tom, about Maya, about everything. I didn't forgive her, but I appreciated that she was trying. She asked if Maya and I were okay, and I told her we were working on it. Maya and I started meeting for dinner every week. Just the 2 of us without Rachel or anyone else. We talked about the 4 years of lies and how they damaged our relationship. Maya explained that Rachel had made her believe telling me would destroy everything, that I would hate them both and try to take Ariana away. Maya realized now that Rachel had been manipulating her the whole time, using Ariana as leverage to keep Maya quiet and compliant. We set new boundaries about honesty. No more secrets about relationships or major life decisions. Maya promised to introduce me to anyone she dated going forward. I promised to be less judgmental and more open to hearing her out. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like we were building something real for the first time in years. Our therapist said we were making good progress. Darren called me one afternoon to give me an update on Ariana. He said she was thriving with the 3-household arrangement. Her grades were good, she had friends at the school, and she seemed genuinely happy. The structure and consistency of the court-ordered schedule had given her stability she'd never had before. Ariana told Darren she felt lucky to have so many people who loved her. 3 homes, multiple siblings, and several adults all committed to her welfare. Darren said it was unconventional, but it was working. Ariana had stopped asking when the grown-ups would stop fighting and started enjoying her expanded family. He thought the arrangement could work long-term if all 3 parents kept cooperating. Jimena and I decided to redo our engagement party. This time we kept it small, just close friends at our apartment. No drama, no surprise guests, no viral videos. Maya came and spent the first 20 minutes apologizing to Jimena for everything. For the chaos, the lies, the way she'd brought Rachel's manipulation into our lives. Jimena was gracious and told Maya she understood that Rachel had been controlling her too. They talked for a long time about boundaries and honesty. I watched my sister and my fiancé building a relationship based on truth instead of secrets. The party was exactly what we'd wanted the first time. People laughed and ate and celebrated our engagement without any hidden agendas or family drama lurking underneath. 6 weeks after Tom entered Ariana's life, I checked in with everyone to see how the arrangement was holding up. Rachel texted that Ariana had just left for Tom's house and seemed excited to see her half-siblings. Holden sent a photo of Ariana doing homework at his kitchen table. Tom posted a picture of all his kids together at a park. Ariana was in the middle, smiling bigger than I'd ever seen her. The expanded custody arrangement was working smoothly. Ariana had 3 homes, multiple siblings, and several adults committed to her welfare. It was unconventional and complicated, and required constant communication between people who didn't particularly like each other. But it was functional. Ariana was happy and safe and loved. That was what mattered. I thought a lot about my decision to tell Tom. It had caused immediate chaos and reopened Ariana's custody case right when things were settling. But watching Ariana thrive now with 3 families, I knew it had been right. She deserved to know her biological father. Tom deserved to know his daughter. The truth had been messy and painful and had hurt people in the short term. But keeping the secret would have been worse. Ariana would have eventually found out and felt betrayed by everyone who knew. Tom would have discovered the truth someday and lost even more years. Rachel's lies had caused enough damage. Adding my own lies on top wouldn't have helped anyone. The truth was necessary even when it wasn't clean. Maya started dating someone new 3 months after leaving Rachel. She brought her girlfriend to family dinner and introduced her properly to everyone. No secrets this time, no hidden relationships. The girlfriend was kind and asked good questions and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know our family. Maya looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years, more confident and honest about what she wanted. She'd learned from the Rachel situation that hiding relationships only led to pain. Her new girlfriend knew everything about the custody drama and the 4 years of lies. Maya was being open about her needs and setting boundaries. I could see her making healthier choices. She was becoming the person she should have been all along. Ariana's first school talent show happened 3 weeks after the custody arrangement settled. I got a text from Maya asking if I wanted to come watch Ariana perform, and I said yes without thinking too hard about it. When I arrived at the elementary school gym, I spotted Rachel sitting in the 3rd row with Maya beside her. Tom was there too with his wife and their 2 kids, sitting 1 row behind them. Holden showed up 5 minutes before the show started and took a seat at the end of Rachel's row. They all nodded at each other like co-workers at a meeting. Ariana came out in a sparkly purple dress and sang a song from some kid's movie I didn't recognize. She kept looking into the audience to find her people, and when she spotted all of them sitting near each other, her whole face lit up. After the show, they all went up together to congratulate her. Tom's kids were excited to see their half-sister, and Ariana showed them the ribbon she got for participating. Rachel and Holden managed to have a normal conversation about Ariana's upcoming dentist appointment. Tom's wife took pictures of all the kids together. It was weird watching them function like this, but it was working. Ariana's therapist had told Maya that Ariana felt lucky to have so many families, which seemed impossible given how messy everything had been. But kids adapt better than adults do sometimes. The 3-parent situation was strange and required constant scheduling and communication, but Ariana was thriving with all the attention and stability. A week later, Jimena and I sat down with our wedding planner to finalize details. We'd rescheduled everything after the engagement party disaster, and now we were actually moving forward. I told Jimena I wanted to ask Maya to be in the wedding party, and she supported the decision even though Maya had brought so much chaos into our lives. Our relationship wasn't the same as before, but we were building something new based on honesty, instead of whatever fake closeness we'd had when she was hiding Rachel. Maya cried when I asked her, and we both acknowledged that we had a long way to go, but we were trying. 2 days before our final dress fitting, a package arrived at my apartment. Inside was a drawing from Ariana showing stick figures labeled with everyone's names. There was Rachel and Maya and Holden and Tom and his wife and kids, all holding hands in a line. At the very end of the line was a stick figure labeled "My Friend," with my name underneath. Ariana had drawn hearts around all of us. I put the drawing on my fridge and stared at it while making coffee. Sometimes the messiest situations create the most unexpected forms of love and connection. Ariana had 3 homes and multiple siblings and more adults who cared about her than most kids ever get. It wasn't traditional or simple, but it was real and it was working. I thought about all the lies and manipulation and court battles that had brought us here. None of it had been clean or easy, but Ariana was happy and safe. That mattered more than any of the pain it took to get here.